Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Back up here on the river, gonna fish this little spillway with worms again. It's kindly muddy, so I'm not gonna really bother with the lures too much, if at all. But the water has also come up considerably, so hopefully there's some fish in here. Like I said, I'm going to use night crawlers because I recently had a video using just night crawlers from the bank, and it blew up. Like it's one of the highest viewed videos on the channel. So anyway, we got some storms rolling in later this evening, little spotty showers. So I'm gonna get rigged up, roast in the sun, and hopefully catch a bunch of fish, because that would be nice. All right, we're finally rigged up. I had to go back to my vehicle and get some pliers because apparently I left all of my stuff at home, besides what was hidden in my vehicle. But the rod we're working with today is one I've been trying to get a hold of for a long time. It's a Daiwa Presso 6'6" ultralight fast, and I got paired up with a Daiwa Revros LT1000 and some 4-pound mono. So we're just gonna cast around a little jig head, night crawler, try to catch us some fishes. I only bought one tub of worms this time because the last two times I bought two of them, one of them melted, and with worms being $4 a tub in most cases, yeah, I'm not about that. First fish of the afternoon, teeny tiny little gill. I'm not out looking for monster fish, I'm looking for numbers of fish, and well, I guess I'll screenshot one since that little goober got away. But this little Presso rod has been evading me for a very long time, and I finally found one on, I believe it was fishusa.com. Like, you can get this rod from 4 foot all the way up to 9 foot, or actually 11, I think. But I don't like for the mass majority of my rods to be any shorter than 6 foot or any longer than about 6'9", 6'10". I mean, I've got several 7-foot rods, but for my type of fishing, 6 foot is plenty. The connection between the two rods, a little ferrule. This is a extra long ferrule, whatever you want to call that. So you've got a lot more rod in there to keep it stronger and from slipping. There we go. Didn't even feel you get hit, but that's all right. You getting hooked is all that matters. Another, chill out, homie. Another little fun size gill. Of course, I would not be opposed to, you know, 6, 7, 8, 9-inch gill that sometimes roam these waters. That would be quite the fun ordeal. There we go. That one's a little bit nicer. Not by much. But I've been in search for a worm cooler, like a soft side worm cooler, and yeah, any cooler would work really, but I am looking for a particular one, and I'll show you why here in a second. Yes, I take a picture of every fish I catch because I have a logbook, and whenever I update my logbook I delete the pictures. Anyway, I want a small soft side cooler that I can collapse even with a couple of tubs of worms in there that will fit in my backpack. And I do not want to spend a truckload of money on one just because. However, I think I've found the one that I want. It's the Flambeau something or other. I'll put a picture on the screen somewhere. But yeah, I've got plenty of coolers that I could do that with, like small 6 and 8 can coolers, but I'm trying to minimize the amount of stuff that I carry around. Had one on, didn't even know it. Don't throw my worm. I mean, you can throw that little piece off, but don't lose it. Another little bluegill. Get you back and I'll just screenshot the other one. Oh, I didn't even feel you hit. And you got my worm, you little goober. And I still got some of it on there. But a little fun size gill. That right there, good bait size. But we're not out here to catch bass. Well, I mean, we might catch one by chance on worms. You know, honestly, I don't know when the last time was I caught a bass on worms. I've caught more crappie on worms here recently than I have bass. There we go. Here's another one. You know, this rod feels pretty nice. Even with these little small bluegill, it has a very whippy tip section. So even on these little bitty ones like that, well, I was going to toss you in the water instead of dropping you on the rock, but you had to be a good one. But yeah, this rod, the one complaint I do have, and it's with every rod really, is this little screw here to keep it tightened down, or the reel tightened down, likes to slip a little bit or back down a little bit. It's not terrible, but I don't know if you can tell, but this rod is very, very soft tipped. So even the smaller gills and crappie and stuff like that provide a good little fun time. There we go. Yeah, that's another. It's a little bit nicer, I think. Yeah, it's about the size of the last one. It ain't a monster, but we'll take it. But yeah, I've got several soft side coolers that I could use, but I want something smaller. I'm kind of surprised I got a fish on that teeny tiny little piece of worm. Yep. Well, we've got a little bit left on there. I think we ought to try to see if we can get another one. Probably won't, but and there's another one. That was quick. I'll have to get a picture of you and the previous one because I didn't do that. Oh. Palm-sized gillikin, or as my buddy on here, Bass and Grass, calls them, Gilberts. There we go. Kind of surprised I even get one on that little teeny tiny piece of worm. Tell you what, that breeze feels good. Thank you for visiting, Mr. Gill. I'll show you here in just a second how I'm working this in this current along these banks. Because along that side, I mean, you've got some submerged not timber, but submerged bushes. But there's also a lot of rocks. So instead of letting it get down to the bottom, I'm just casting it out past these little bushes, letting it sink for a couple of seconds, and then just slowly reeling it. And there's a bite. And there's a fish. That way, even in this muddy water, and you're snagged. I can't count you. Can't count you, you're snagged. But even in this muddy water, they'll be able to find it once it's moving. Oh, there we go. There we go. Yeah, you're still on there. And we got us another speed shy for the day. This right here is a goober. right here is what I have often referred to as a needlefish, or the southern needlefish, because everything on them is sharp. Yeah, you little yellow bass, they're mean little fish. I'm not lying when I say everything on them is sharp. Their scales, their fins, their everything. Now, to make these worms last as long as possible, I'm not using a whole worm or even half a worm. I'm using just enough worm to cover the hook, and sometimes maybe just a little bit more, but I'm using just a little 1/32 ounce B&M ball head jig, nothing crazy, and just enough worm to cover the jig, and then just one more little hook through there. I mean, yes, this is coming off relatively easy and getting tore off relatively easy, but you're not flinging a whole worm out there and feeding that whole worm to a little wolfpack bluegill or whatever else. There we go. This one feels pretty good. And it's actually smaller than several that we caught earlier. But with the right rod, like I said, any of these little bitty gills like this will... I know you ain't hooked that daggone good. There we go. Any of these little bitty micro gills will feel good. It's about 92 out right now with like 7 billion% humidity. I mean, when the wind's not blowing, it feels like you just stepped out of the shower and straight into your clothes without drying off. But yeah, that breeze is quite nice. And I have come to the decision over, you know, the last 5-6 years, for my style of fishing, the majority of the time, a 1,000 size reel is all I need. You know, I might go up to like a 2,500, in some cases a 3,000, but really the reels aren't that much different. You know, you might get a couple, you know, extra pounds of drag, but other than that, the only thing you're really gaining is line capacity. And you're also, you got a massive difference in weight there, but it is what it is. But yeah, 1,000 and 2,000 size reels are all I ever really need or use anymore. Now, as far as panfish, crappie, stuff like that goes, comes to catfish, I want something a little bit more beef to it. There we go. Finally got one. It's been a minute or two, or a reasonable proximity thereof. And you slung my worm off, you little... You know, I've said it a bunch of times in videos. People will laugh and wonder why anybody enjoys catching these little old bitty bluegill. They don't put up a heck of a fight. They ain't no good for nothing, yada, yada, yada. Well, these people are more than likely a part of a newer generation that didn't grow up sitting on a riverbank or the creek bank with a little ultralight, you know, spin cast reel or whatever, just throwing some worms out. They didn't grow up, you know, enjoying that and experiencing that, learning to fish on that. They also are part of a generation that thinks you can only fish with the highest price gear and all that crap. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I've got some setups that are on up there, but the thing is, yeah, I've got some nicer gear, but I also have cheaper gear. It really just comes down to what I'm doing, or really what I feel like fishing with. You know, there's been plenty of times where I'm like, you know what, I ain't fished with that setup in a while, I'll take that one out. And I've got several setups that I just prefer for crappie, and setups that I prefer for bluegill and some for bass and catfish and so on. There we go. Kind of surprised they even had anything left on it after the first couple of little pecks that I got. And before I forget, I need to do a thumbnail for this video. I ain't even got a clue how many we caught either. We'll look into that here in just a minute. Hey, did we finally hook up with one? You're just a mean one, Mr. Grinch. Thought you was a little bit bigger than you were. It has definitely cooled off and we've been catching some fish. It's starting to get a little bit cloudier, not too much, but enough to where it's quite on the comfortable side. Ooh, you just picked it up and knocked slack in it. You ain't even all that big. I'll just screenshot one of my other ones and get you off of here. You just barely hooked though. Biggin. There we go. What are you? Oh, you're just another gillikin. Just about got my worm too. Can't be having that now. Can't be having that. Well, we're going to give it about 30 more minutes or so. It ain't been a bad stop. But yeah, we're going to give her about 30 more minutes. On real hot days, I like to carry a small little fan if I can remember to bring it with me. But you get these at Walmart and a bunch of other places for just a couple of dollars. They got 3 different settings, USB charge, all of that. Give you a nice little breeze for when they ain't no breeze. And you can hang it around your neck and it like sits right there on your chest. But the problem is it sits about right here, and I don't know if y'all know, but I've got a good bit of face fur, so it doesn't really work from that angle. You know, I can't wait for that fall and winter bite to really test this rod out on some crappie, because I'm excited for the fall and winter bite just because it's that bite. I was telling a lady at the gas station earlier, like, you know what, I'm ready to start complaining about it being too cold. All right. It has been a long minute since we've got one. And go figure, something took a chunk out of you. Go figure, it got my worm. All right. That's all right, I reckon. The more worm we get used up, the less we have going bad. There we go. This one ain't real big, but you know what? It let us have our worm back, so we might as well try to catch another one while we've got some worm left, which will probably last about half of this next cast. You know what? I'm gonna swap a battery out because I've got like 3% left. Oh, another nice one. Another nice one. I can tell when it's one of the bigger bluegill because they don't just sit there and peck at it. They just, you might be the biggest one of the day. They just engulf it and go another direction. So another real pretty bluegill. So get you back, try to do that again. There we go. This one feels a little nicer. Pulling a little bit of drag there, not a whole lot. Yeah, you probably the biggest one of the day. I would say that with a good bit of certainty. And these bluegills are pretty special with the color of blue that they have on their gills, that real light pale blue, and then the dots on their head. Seems like the fish have gotten a little bit deeper right off that bush, but I can't get too deep because there's a lot of rocks along that edge. But tis what tis. Well, y'all, that was a much more surprising trip than I thought it would be, because I got up here, figured the water would just be tore up with boaters, and it kind of was, but usually this part right here is already full by the time I get here, so I rarely get to fish it. But 2 trips in a row, it produced a good number of fish. Now we'll go over the rod that I was using again real quick. This thing is quickly becoming one of my favorite ultralight rods. This is the Daiwa Presso 6.6 ultralight fast. It's a 2-piece rod. I'll pull this apart here so you can see just how big that ferrule, or whatever you want to call it, is. So you've got a lot of rod there, keeping the strength of this thing so that you don't have to worry about it breaking at that point, because that is kind of the weak point of a lot of 2-piece rods. And paired up with a Daiwa Revros LT1000. Things are awesome. Like, a lot of the Daiwa reels hold a lot more line than you really need, but this one here, about 110 yards of 4-pound mono, perfect for a 1000 size, ultralight size reel. Anyway, this outro has gone on far enough. We didn't catch anything like super crazy, but we got plenty of fish to make a video, and catching fish is all that matters. Anyway, hope you liked the video. We'll see you in the next one.